Hello and welcome to the segment of Daybreak Africa on KAFTAN TV. My name is Yetunde, Alanamu, and today we're talking about a new bill, student loan, that was signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I'm here with Prince Adedamola Bernard Adedejo. Hello.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm very fine.
Okay, to start the discussion, what is your reaction towards the new bill that was signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu concerning the student loan?
Well, the student loan bill is a welcome development. You would agree with me that Nigeria is categorized as the poverty headquarter of the world due to the high number of people that are caught up in the multi-dimensional poverty web. So paying through higher institution, even primary education, is very hard for people that are living below the poverty line. You agree with me that we're having about 130 million Nigerians living in multi-dimensional poverty. This same set of people, they have children in school. How do they pay through? So as a matter of fact, I think it's a timely intervention. Nigeria is not the only one practicing this. I think we're even coming on board. We have the United States of America. We have countries like United Kingdom. We have France. We have Germany that are already on board. Okay. So I think it's a welcome development, and I think we're taking the right step in the right direction.
Okay, so do you think Nigeria economic is buoyant to shoulder the responsibility of the student loan? Now, to think about our infrastructure economic, we still need to be looked into. And also, don't let us forget about the issue of borrowing funds.
All right, you see, it has been argued at different fora that the problem of Nigeria is not actually a revenue problem. It's about spending. We tend to prioritize things that are of little effect. And you must also look at the problem of corruption. We've had funds like this that have been established in time past and have been abused. Yes. You see, as if the money is not there. The money is there.
It depends on the person that they give the project to.
The money talk, because the average Nigerian is corrupt. Yes. Our mindset is the problem. It's not as if the fund is not there. At least the bill is explicit enough in terms of how to fund this student loan of a thing. So if we follow the letter and spirit of this bill to the letters, I think we can achieve success with it.
Okay, even with our economic and the infrastructure and the debts that we still have on hand.
Yeah, kudos to the new administration that is on board. You agree with me that the subsidy removal and the restructuring in our financial system will give room for more funds that will be available to government to be able to achieve programs and objectives that they set to achieve. So I think it's very, very possible, even with the situation of grant, to be able to cope with it.
Okay, now your federal government is yet to meet up with the requirements of ASU. So do you think the student loan is the next thing to come on board?
Nigeria is a big country.
Yes.
Even if it's a small country, we have several sectors of the economy that we have to attend to. ASU is one. Then access to education is another. So you cannot, because you want to attend to ASU, not look into the access of Nigerians to education. And I think if this bill is executed the proper way, and with the way the administration is trying to free up funds and be able to meet up with obligations, I think it's very possible to attend to ASU, attend to the student loan, attend to infrastructure, and at the same time up the lifestyle of the average Nigerian. Okay,
but don't you think you should have looked into the ASU requirements before going into the student loan?
Well, I think, and as a matter of fact, the loan we're talking about has been on ground even before this administration. You agree with me that the bill for an act was sponsored by Adedamola, who happens to be the COS now, but he's a lawmaker then. So it's not an issue that started today. Even ASU, the problem with ASU is not a problem that started today. It only gives more work to this administration to deal with, which I believe the man in charge has shown some early sign of capability to undo issues across several sectors of the economy.
Okay, still about ASU, I think the ASU, they released something recently that the president should change the newly accepted student loan act to grant indigent students. How will you react towards this?
Well, this is a public thing. There is room for everybody to make input. You agree with me that last week, NAS, the National Association of Nigerian Students, they went to the president to make their input. So laws are made to be amended. We can look into it when critical stakeholders are bringing input into this thing to make it work properly. I've read online, and in my own opinion, I've been able to go through the shortcomings of the bill, the merit, the demerit, and all of the things that are not properly put in place. But I think we should credit the people that brought this on board, and we know for a fact that there's still room for improvement. That's why we must listen to critical stakeholders as they bring their opinions to bear on the policy.
With the rate of unemployment, what is the possibility that after school they will get to pay back the loan? Because to get a high-paying job in Nigeria is quite hard.
Yes.
So do you think the federal government will fulfill their promise by providing more jobs to Nigeria, so that after they finish the school, it will not be as if the government will be running after them to pay their debts? So what do you have to say on that?
I think it's about strategizing and re-strategizing. The Nationalwide Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration has promised a lot, at least in terms of job creation, provision of infrastructure, and most importantly, creating an avenue and an atmosphere for business to thrive. When you are able to defeat poverty, when you are able to create jobs, when you are able to allow people to do business and they make good profit, paying back the loan will not be an issue. Like I said earlier, Nigeria is not the only one. We are just trying to bring this thing on board. United States of America has about 24 trillion in unpaid student loan. And you agree with me that even earlier this year, they are talking about debt forgiveness to some sector, to some people. So it's an ongoing thing. It depends on implementation and proper monitoring. If, for instance, Nigerians are liberated from the grip of poverty through job creation, and job creation is not about white-collar jobs alone. Yes. When you give people the ability to do business, you are creating job indirectly. So they will not remain this way. There will always be a room for improvement as time goes by. What we only need is to support this administration in their move to ensure that they put certain things in place to correct the anomaly that we have on ground. It's very saddening that the unemployment rate is what it is today, but as a matter of fact, things can only get better. So it's a matter of time.
But don't you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should tackle the unemployment before the student loan? Because majority of people in Nigeria now, after school, do just be like, okay, they have one hand work that they are doing. Yeah. So why don't you think he should tackle the unemployment before the student loan? Yeah,
as a matter of fact, the two will go hand in hand. You cannot wait till you create employment for those that are not unemployed before you make access to education easy. You agree with me that the issue of unemployment has been with us for so long, and also the access to education. You agree with me that in the north we have the Amajiri system that is as old as the country itself. Does it mean we have to ignore the Amajiri people before we now have to attend? We have to attend to unemployment for those ones. So it's something that must go on, and that's why we have to bring competent people in to undo the different sector of the economy. I was happy to note that one of the essay that Tinubu just employed, there's one position that says policy coordination, so that all these things can go hand in hand, and we are monitoring progress. We are looking at the performance indices and knowing where we have to work more, where we have to put in more effort, and I think it's a very good one.
Okay, concerning the student loan, what do you have to tell President Bola Ahmed Tinubu concerning, not to make the same mistake that the past administration made by, they signed a lot of bill into act, but they did not monitor it accordingly, that made it to fail. So what do you have to tell him?
Well, you see, what you have just mentioned is one of my own interests when it comes to public policy. Nigeria is a country that is bedeviled with one virus. And what is the virus? Too many laws, too little implementation. Yes. And when you try to implement, you bring people in and they start making the place dry. Like I said earlier, it's not the problem of revenue or funds, it's about the spending.
It's about the spending.
It's about the spending. So I think the program, the policy is nice. But what we have to do is to be able to be serious with it and bring people in. Like people have argued against it that we don't need a bank to undo this fund. It should have been a fund under probably the Ministry of Finance or Ministry of Education, so that we reduce the recurrent expenditure. Because if we look at the 2023 budget, about 1.08 trillion was allocated to education. Over 700 billion of that said fund was allocated for recurrent expenditure. You can imagine. Then another 50 billion for overheads. We have a patchy 230 billion for capital infrastructure. Is that not that's negative? It won't take us anywhere because we are spending more on consumption than the actual work that is supposed to be done. So when we look at those things, we ensure that we block leakages. The fund goes to the exact people it should go to. That's when it will have effect on the economy.
Well, to agree with you, I think they said they will be paying the money directly into the schools account.
Yeah.
So the main problem now is that the people that will be paying the money into the school account, they should be trustworthy. So they will not divert the money into and be telling us and be bringing another budget for this same loan, and the way to not affect Nigeria.
That's why we must put in place measures to monitor the implementation of that program, so that we will not have another avenue for people to milk the country. Because they're afraid Nigerian is corrupt, our mind is abused already. So if there's no proper institutional framework to check the essence of people that will be in charge, that's why we don't need to create another bureaucracy around this thing that will start blinking this thing. So that the fund that will go to this, the contribution that will go to this fund will not be used in paying recurrence. People will now they will now start building mosque. They will now start doing things that are irrelevant with the funds. So it's important to monitor it, one, create an institutional framework and ensure check and balances, so that the chief executive will not just go gaga. The board member will not be doing jamboree. So it's very important.
Moving on, do you think the requirements for the loan is fine? They said if anybody wants to apply for the loan, the family or the person must have a 500,000 per annum, and also student must provide at least 2 guarantors, each of the whom must either be a civil servant or less level 12, or a lawyer with at least 10 years protocol experience. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, you see the bill.
Some people are saying the requirement is too much, or someone saying
no. I think we have to be clear with the letter and intent of the bill.
Yes.
The bill is targeting those that are earning household income less than 500,000 per annum. So we are targeting the poor. Now, when you are targeting the poor, is a good thing, but you are now saying this same poor person must have a guarantor that is civil servant on grade level 12,
and they must pay.
And you're asking the person to go and bring probably a lawyer of 10 years post-bar experience.
Yes.
It's becoming more of elitist, and you are targeting the people that are on the low pedestal. So we have to rework it and look into it, but we will not. It will be very unfair to write off the bill on that basis. It's a work in progress. We can amend the bill over and over again to get to perfection.
Okay, so do you agree with the requirement or not? Because in Nigeria now, if you say you're targeting the poor for the student loan, now for someone to get a civil servant and a lawyer, they will still have to be paying I didn't mean they went to meet a lawyer. The lawyer said, okay, you have to give me like 10,000, 20,000 before I can go and stand for you as a guarantee.
Well, I think as much as the law is targeted at the poor, at the same time does not mean we don't have lawyers around us that can stand for us. Unless the lawyer you are going to is corrupt and is wicked too. Okay. At least you'll be able to, we have lawyers around with chambers spread across the town, everywhere. So you can still be able to at least approach one.
And now let's speak about the people that don't even have a lawyer at all.
You don't need to have a lawyer, so to say, like you enlist the service of a lawyer.
Yes.
But there could be a lawyer around you that you can speak to, or somebody can get you. We all go to church and mosque. We have lawyers that are Christians and Muslims that you can speak to. So I think it's still good for a start. But as time goes on, we'll review the conditions. The conditions should not be too liberal or lenient, because it will be subject to abuse. Who do you hold responsible for the person that would default? So you need somebody with at least a good public standing, at least.
Okay. In your opinion, should private universities be involved?
Well, I will vote against it. I will say no, because
Why?
Private universities are reserved for people that are rich. You can't attend Governance University. You can't afford to take your child or daughter to Governance University and now ask to access a loan that is targeted at the poor, to give them access to quality education. For you to go to that place, it's elitist. You have the access, you have the revenue, so you should be able to deal with it. You should let the poor breathe.
Let the poor breathe. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's talk about the poor. Most especially in Nigeria, there are some students that they are hustling by themselves to sponsor themselves to school.
Yeah.
So now let's pick for them.
Okay. Well, I think those ones, they are an integral part of this policy. People, even before the student loan, people have been fending for themselves through school.
Yes.
The student loan bill makes it much more easier. At least you are accessing funds from somewhere. It reduces the pressure. So I think it's a welcome development for them. And we must get policymakers, those in charge of education, to look at bringing vocation into our education so that when people graduate from school, they don't need to start looking for job up and down. They can create something from nothing.
That's what I'm trying to get at. The government should look into unemployment.
So, and even the students themselves, the people in the society, we must start tending toward vocation. A lot of us who are doing that already. People are going to school now and they are learning trades at the same time.
Yes.
There are a lot of students that are sewing for their co-students. Some are into makeup, some are into beads and a lot of things. And some are even CEOs now. We can find out of them on our WhatsApp.
CEOs,
Okay, as in putting up things for sale, all these ornaments, specs, everything, clothes, and people are making money from it.
Okay, now let's talk about, the federal government said if after 2 years after NYC, that's when they will be deducting the money from the person's salary. Now let's talk about the people that they don't even have interest in government work.
Okay, at least you have made a valid point, but if you look at the bill properly, there's also a provision for people that will go into private ventures. After the same 2 years, you file your returns to an appropriate body and you now start paying 10% of whatever you are making as income. So there is already provision for those that will go into the private sector and those that will be doing government job or paid job, or those that will go into all these vocations.
What are your final words on this matter?
Well, my final words, very simple. The government is doing well. We have started well. At least we are showing that we are not left behind in the scheming of things, at least as is concerned the Committee of Nations. Like I said, I set an example of the United States with over 24 trillion in student loan. We have the UK with over 8 trillion in student loan. We have France with over 6 trillion in student loan, and we have Germany with about 7 or 6 trillion in student loan. So I think we are joining the Committee of Nations. It's good to tell you that all over the world, people are enhancing the access of people to access quality education. So we cannot be left behind. It's a welcome development, but like I've said, implementation must be monitored so that we don't create another conduit pipe for people to siphon government funds. So as a matter of fact, we should not turn this noble intention into a breeding ground for corruption to enrich just a set of people.
Yes.
So, and the law should be reviewed from time to time to ensure that there's no abuse and that people can actually tap into the loan and make proper use of it.
Yes. Thank you very much. And as you can hear, Nigeria is joining the community of the world. So we wish the new administration very well. I am Yetunde. Alanamu. Join us next time.